There were several Korean indies that played at the Sydney Film Festival this year, but the most excitement for K-buffs was the late edition of The Handmaiden so soon after its Cannes premiere. Despite JSA being one of my favourite Korean films, I'm not a big Park Chan-wook fan. I regard JSA as the work of a journeyman rather than the auteurist of the Vengeance trilogy and the decidedly less interesting Thirst or the downright awful I'm a Cyborg and That's Okay. Also, I'm beginning to tire of the level of Japan bashing that's going on in big-budget Korean cinema. Certainly the occupation of Korea by Japan was brutal, and Koreans are entitled to explore their painful history. But it seems to me, since the box office success of Roaring Currents in 2014 and the subsequent successes of films like The Tiger, Spirit's Homecoming and The Wailing, that there's other elements that are coming into play here. Certainly the increasing hostile rhetoric that's emanated from Japan during the Abe era would be enough to raise any Korean's ire. But I suspect that in addition to the right-wing agenda of the current South Korean presidency, that there is also a conscious pandering to anti-Japanese sentiment in China in order to make Korean films more attractive to the Chinese market. Now, that observation aside, I need not have worried, because even though the film is set during the occupation era, it's not mired by anti-Japanese sentiment. It's the story of a handsome Korean swindler, played by Ha Jung-woo, who goes by the name of Count Fujiwara. The conman places a young thief, Suk-hee, played by Kim Tae-ri, to act as a handmaiden in the house of an aging bookworm, whose niece, Lady Hideko, played by Kim Min-hee, is set to inherit his riches. With the handmaiden's help, Fujiwara aims to marry the niece with the aim of acquiring her wealth. Suk-hee does her job well, befriending Lady Hideko, but in the first of several surprise twists, Suk-hee becomes sexually involved with the target of the sting. There will be times in the first trimester of The Handmaiden where you may think Park Chan-wook has stumbled. Aspects of the story don't hang together, some of the performances don't ring true, in particular I'm thinking about Kim Min-hee. But let me assure you that the script, based on a book by Sarah Waters, is much smarter than you are, and my advice is for you to hang in there with your reservations. Hollywood film buffs will be reminded of Hitchcock's Vertigo, but even that hint will only get you part of the way home, as The Handmaiden has many secrets. Also, director Park does more than transfer the novel to an oriental landscape. Rather than use Fingersmith's plot to attack the Japanese or fan Korean nationalism, he actually manages to salute Japanese art forms, with nods to Edogawa Ranpo, the mystery writer, and also the erotic art of shunga. And in fact, while the plot is perfectly adapted to Korean sensibilities and demonstrates the likely intrigues of Koreans operating under a colonial power, The Handmaiden feels very much like a high-quality Japanese film of a bygone era. The Handmaiden is one of 2016's must-see films. It's deliciously intriguing, decidedly erotic, even though it's driven somewhat by a man's idea of what lesbians do in bed, therefore contradicting the original text. But the production values are lush, the performances are an alluring combination of wit, danger and sex. What's not to like?